Welcome back, Sebastian here. So that was a very interesting session. No, this is the actual result. So time for my review for the Singapore Grand Prix qualifying. So in Q1, it was very close after the first runs. Leclerc, Norris, and Perez within 4/100ths of a second of each other. So it looks very close between the Ferraris, the McLarens. Red Bull has been very off the pace all through Friday practice and through practice this morning. Russell goes top as well. The bottom five drivers after the first runs in Q1 are Stroll, Zhou, Bottas, Albon, and Lawson. So those are drivers that definitely needed to improve. Sargent and Stroll were under investigation for an impeding incident, but that was going to be investigated after qualifying. Track evolution looked very strong, and Tsunoda goes P1 after after his second run. And then we have the big moment of qualifying, or one of them at least. Stroll crashes very heavily at the final corner, basically rips the whole left side of his car off, spins back onto the track. Luckily doesn't collect Norris in the process, and we get a very lengthy red flag. Of course, it's at the end of the session, so a lot of the drivers behind him, or all the drivers behind him, couldn't set a lap time. So we had some drivers who basically kind of got caught out, especially Oscar Piastri. So your five drivers who got knocked out in Q1 were Stroll, Zhou, Sargent, Piastri, and Bottas. Verstappen was also under investigation for holding up cars behind him in the pit lane. He went to the end of the pit lane, stopped, and then waited for about five or 6 seconds, and then came on the radio and it made it sound like he was basically trying to build a gap. He may get a penalty for that. There were several things today where that may be penalized, but I don't have time to wait until 2 to 3 hours for that to get dealt with. There's also the traffic investigation turned 16 to 19, when basically you had 5 or 6 drivers trying to do their warm-up lap, all driving very slowly, and a car trying to come through on their hot lap. So as of now, nothing yet, but possibly penalties. Q2 Red Bull really looks like they're struggling. Tsunoda is impeded by Verstappen. That's probably going to get him a penalty. And then after the first runs in Q2, the bottom five were Tsunoda, who had his lap aborted because he was impeded by Verstappen, Albon, Lawson, Hülkenberg, and Perez. But for Perez, I honestly didn't really feel it was his fault. Just felt like Red Bull really messed up the car, the setup of the car this weekend, or that technical directive had a much bigger effect than we thought. Second runs, both Red Bulls have massive problems at turn 3. Verstappen basically had to counter steer, lost about 2/10 in that corner alone, it seemed, and then Perez spun as well, basically ruining any hopes of him improving his lap time. So we have 5 drivers out after Q2 were Tsunoda, who seemed to have another issue, didn't set a lap time in Q2. Albon, Perez, Gasly, and Verstappen all out, so both Red Bulls out. Lawson, the only Red Bull driver who gets into Q3. Definitely very strange. Definitely not something that I expected. I think bare minimum, even if Red Bull was having an off weekend and were struggling, based on what they were doing in practice, I did expect them to at least get into Q3 with both cars. So into Q3 we go. Norris and Sainz are very close on the outlap, but no contact there. Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, Russell, and Hamilton were your top 5 after the first run. Sainz looked very good all through practice, all through qualifying. Looks like he has a slight advantage over Leclerc. Then we get to the final laps, the most important lap of today. Sainz fastest sector 1, but goes yellow in sector 2, making it look like there's a little bit of hope for some of the other drivers. He sets a new personal best to stay P1. Leclerc sets a purple sector 2. Looks like he was up on that time, but he only manages to go second, and he was 0.076 seconds off, so about 7.5 hundredths off. And then Russell pips into second place, and Hamilton was only 5th. So Sainz takes his, first pole position of the season, I believe, and 0.072 over Russell. And I believe Sainz's second career pole position on pace alone. I know he had 2 others last year that were due to Verstappen getting grid penalties, but still excellent result for Ferrari, getting 1st and 3rd. And I think a really unpredictable grid for tomorrow's race. I'm honestly not sure who to pick for the win. So just looking at the grid for tomorrow's race, First, Sainz, second, Russell, third, Leclerc, fourth, Norris, fifth, Hamilton, fifth, sixth, Magnussen, seventh, Alonso, eighth, Ocon, ninth, Hulkenberg, 10th, Lawson, first Q3 for him. Pretty good result, although I think helped by a lot of the chaos around him. 11th, Verstappen. I don't think he's going to be winning from 11th tomorrow, but we'll see what happens. 12th, Gasly, 13th, Perez, 14th, Albon, 15th, Tsunoda, 16th, Bottas, 17th, Piastri, 19th, Sargent, 19th, Zhou, and 20th, Stroll, who has had pretty much an awful weekend, and is definitely not the reason why I'm wearing Aston Martin right now. It was the only shirt I brought with me on my trip. So that being said, really interesting session. Sets us up for a really unpredictable race for tomorrow. Of course, Singapore is very difficult to overtake, which does limit things quite a bit in terms of predictions. I do think that if Ferrari can hold on in the race pace and they don't mess up the strategy too much, they should be able to get a win somehow between Sainz or Leclerc. Russell might be in the mix as well, and maybe Norris as well. So that's all for my review of qualifying. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow night with my review of the race. Should be really exciting, really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.